In this video, I'm going to be cooking a diner classic, beef tips with gravy, served over egg noodles with a side of corn. And I'm going to be cooking it in the Instant Pot, not only to save time, but also to tenderize cheap cuts of beef. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell to be notified when there's new videos. Comments welcome. Thank you. Here's a quick list of ingredients, or you can check out the description below. Okay, so to start off with, I'm gonna trim and cube up the meat. In this case, I'm using a London broil. I often like to use like the petite sirloin or even a chuck roast. Or those are getting more expensive lately, and this London broil, which is a top round, is still pretty cheap. And with the Instant Pot cooking it, it'll tenderize it nice. It'll just melt in your mouth, and of course it has good flavor. So it's a good way to save money and make a good meal, good comfort food. All right, with that all diced up now, I'm going to season this up. And you just use some of your favorite steak seasoning or barbecue seasoning, a couple teaspoons, and then we're just going to add in a little extra garlic and onion powder. And then some kosher salt and some coarse brown black pepper. And then just mix that up real well to coat the meat. And we'll just set that aside until we're ready to cook it. Alright, next up we're going to do an onion. Dice up an onion. Then I've got an 8-ounce container of sliced mushrooms, which I'm going to chop up a little bit again, a little more. All right, let's get the Instant Pot going. We're going to use the saute function to brown the meat and cook the onions and mushrooms before we use the pressure cooking feature. So it's a little oil, of course, and to set it on saute and get it up hot. Then I'll just cook this for a little while, then and brown it. You can see the liquid comes out and then it evaporates, and then finally we get to the browning here. I'm just pulling the meat out. I'll set it aside while we cook the onions and the mushrooms, and then we'll put it back in. You can see in the bottom of the pan there all that lovely fond. That's going to help flavor our gravy. So we're going to put in some butter and then some olive oil, and before this thing gets too hot, we'll get the onions and the mushrooms in. We're just going to kind of cook those a bit, and I added some water there to help get the fond off the bottom there, to dissolve it. And then as you can see now, it's all liquid and it's cooking, and the onions and mushrooms are cooking in it there. So you want to make sure you get all that off, or you can get a burn notice on your Instant Pot. Now we're going in with some garlic, and we'll cook that for just a little bit till it gets fragrant. Everything just smells awesome right now. You can see the bottom was clear there. So now one of our key ingredients here, if it adds to the nuance and the flavor, is some red wine. And if you don't have red wine, you can use 50-50 red wine vinegar and water. Got some thyme, some bouillon, better than bouillon, so I'm using. You can use bouillon powder. And then another key ingredient here, the Worcestershire sauce. Can't make it without that. Next up is the Campbell's beef consommé. And then we'll add the meat back in and stir it all up. Right, and then seal up the Instant Pot. Make sure you set that vent lever to seal. And then we'll set this on manual for 30 minutes. Okay, so while the meat's cooking, I'll get started on the pasta here. Measure out 8 ounces of extra large egg noodles. Just looks like about 4 cups. And then we'll get some water going on the stove. And add in a little kosher salt there to salt the pasta. While the water comes up to a boil, we'll get the corn ready. This is just a 16-ounce bag of frozen corn. I'm going to microwave that for about 4 minutes, about half the time it usually takes to cook. Okay, so the water's boiling. Get our pasta in. Stir that around a little bit, and we'll cook that for about 10 minutes, or whatever the package you have says. Alright, so the corn's at about the halfway point now. So I'm going to add in the butter. About 3 tablespoons. You want a lot of butter. It's diner corn, you know, like you get in a diner. There we go. And then that's ready to go back in the microwave. Alright, so the Instant Pot's done. It's been done for a little while, about 15-20 minutes. And you want to do a natural release on this, especially on any meat actually. But when it's pressure cooking, the fibers shrink up, and then when it's done, you want to just let it sit, and naturally, you know, the pressure goes down, the heat go down a bit, so that the meat comes back to normal. It's like resting it after you roast it or bake it. So now we're gonna start working on the gravy, and I just put a 1/4 cup of flour and about a 1/2 cup of water. Mix that up real good so there's no lumps in it. And this is what we're going to use to thicken it up. Alright. I'm just pour that in while we're stirring. You shouldn't have any problem with lumps here. If you got all the lumps out when you were mixing it, then you should be good. Especially since it's cold going into a hot liquid. Alright. And we're just going to turn the temperature back up on that Instant Pot. Get it back up to boiling there. Alright, so the pasta's been cooking for about 10 minutes. Check it out there, and it's perfect. So we'll take that off and drain it. And then we'll put it back in the pan. And throw in a couple tablespoons of butter. And let that melt. Got to build ourselves a nice bed to put our beef tips and gravy on. Some nice rich butter in there. And then I like to use some parsley. Fresh parsley is better, but dried parsley works really well. And it looks nice. Makes it look a little more fancy. And the way I like to serve it is to have it separate from the beef tips, so you can get as much pasta as you want or as much beef tips. If you don't want to eat a lot of carbs, you can just have a little bit. You have mostly beef. Alright, so that's pretty good there. Okay, so the gravy is bubbling nicely and thickening up. It's actually looking pretty good, but I like my gravy a little thicker than this. Of course, you can leave it like this. If this way you like it, don't do anything. But I'm going to add some more thickening. So I'm going to take like a couple of tablespoons of flour and like a 1/4 cup of water. Mix that up again, a little slurry, and we'll put that in. I think it's getting pretty good now, about where I like it. So let's taste it. We can test to see how thick it is, so you can see there, back of the spoon. And I'll taste it, so check for salt. And this is actually has enough salt in it already with that beef consommé and stuff, so it's well salted. I'm just going to add some pepper. Alright, so I finished up the corn there. Just Mix up that butter. Then I'm just going to add some salt and pepper, some kosher salt and some black pepper. And with this diner corn, I like to add like a bunch of pepper. You can also add a little sugar if you like. But I think sweet corn nutties is sweet enough, so I don't do that. But I think classically in a diner they might. Of course, in a diner they probably use huge number 10 cans of corn that they just have cooking in the back all day, but instead of the frozen corn. But this will be close enough. Okay, so here we go with our mini buffet. We got our beef tips and gravy. Awesome gravy there. And then our egg noodles with butter and parsley. And our diner corn. Lots of pepper. Okay, so I'll just serve me up a plate here. I'm going to get some of the beef tips and gravy. Put that on my noodles. See, I've already got my corn. This cameraman is really bad at tracking this, but you can see how nice and thick and creamy that gravy is. Dark. So there we go. Beef tips and gravy over egg noodles with a side of corn. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click that notification bell to be notified when new videos are posted.